everybody. Today we're covering the topic of compound interest, and this is for foundation and higher tier students, so regardless of which paper you're sitting, this video will be useful for you. Let's begin. The key concept for this topic is multipliers, and once you get a grasp for these, you'll see that this topic's actually fairly simple. All the multipliers is it represents a percentage increase or decrease as a decimal. So we have a 10% increase here, and that looks like 1.1, and a 1% increase looks like 1.01. If I was to show you an example of a 2% increase, that would look like 1.02. And if I was to give you a number example of a 10% increase, we'd have 200 here as our example number, times that by 1.1, which is our multiplier, and that will give you 220, which is equal to 110%. Next, we have our percentage decrease. A 10% decrease is 0.9, and a 1% decrease is 0.99. A 2% decrease would look like 0.98. So all you're doing is taking away 0.02, which is 2% from 1. And that's how you get your decrease values. An example of a 10% decrease on 200, you do 200 times 0.9, and that will give you 180, which is equal to 90% of 200. Our first example question here is non-calculator, and it's the only example question I have that is non-calculator, because the majority of questions in this topic are calculator questions. So we'll call this a warm-up. So 3,000, sorry, I just picked that up there. Sebastian leaves £3,000 in the bank for 2 years. It earns compound interest of 2% per year. Calculate the total amount Sebastian has in the bank at the end of the 2 years. So we have a 2% interest increase here. So what that means is we're going to do 3,000 and we're going to times that by 1.02, which is our multiplier for a 2% increase. And then what we're going to do here, we see it's for 2 years. Normally what you do is you'd multiply your, you'd put your number here, your multiplier, to the power of n, with n being the amount of years. But since we have to do this non-calculator, I'll have to work this first value out, so that would be 3060. And then if I am to do the next one, we have to do 3060 times 1.02. And that should give you 3,121.2. That sounds about right. And that's that example question done. Now let's move on to a more routine calculator question. This is probably one that you'll see come up in the exam, more than likely. So Fiona leaves £1,600 in the bank for 4 years. It earns compound interest of 4% per year. Calculate the total amount of interest, not the total amount of interest, the total amount that Fiona has in the bank at the end of the 4 years. So not the amount of interest, just the whole amount that she has left. And all that means is 1,600 times your multiplier, so 1.04. And then we're going to do that to the power of 4, as you have 4 years. And just type that out in your calculator, 1,600 times 1.04 to the power of 4. And you should have gotten 1,871.77. You don't have to put any more decimal places. That will round it up because we're working with money here. The next question's your first example of a percentage decrease. A car was bought for £18,000, so we can write that down straight away. Its value depreciated. All that means is decreased by 15% each year for the first 3 years. So if we write down our multiplier here, it's the multiplier of a decrease. So we're doing 0.15, and we've got 1 minus 0.15. So 1 minus 0.15 equals our multiplier here, so 0.85. And that's for the first 3 years. And we're going to get the value of the car now. and that should give you £11,054.25. Let's move on to the next question. This is slightly different, as here it appears we are looking for the amount of years that the money's been in the savings account, as it's saying n years and work out the value of n, so work out the amount of years. So we have £5,000, and from the looks of things we're going to have to do a bit of trial and error here. So 5,000 times 1.032, as that's a percentage increase, to the power of n is equal to 5,852.86. And to work that out, we're going to start off with 2 years here. So 5,000 times 1.032 to the power of 2. And that's not it. It's too small of a value. We'll skip to 4. Still too small a value. So we'll try 5 years. And yep, it's 5 years. If you've done that on your calculator, you'll see. So that means n is equal to 5. Next question here, we're working out the percentage that was paid in compound interest, so the actual rate. So we've got 8,000, and we don't know the value of the interest rate, so we're just going to put times x, and that's to the power of 3 is equal to 8,589.93. So all we're going to do here is rearrange, so that's going to be divided, and that will leave you with x cubed is equal to that divided by 8,000, and if you do that on your calculator right now, £8,589.93 over 8,000, and that gave me 1.07374125. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cube root each side, and what this will do is give us x, which is equal to, sorry, let me just cube root that. X is equal to 1.0239. We don't have to use any other values here. What we're going to do next is we're going to times this by 100, so we can get it as a percentage. Oh, that's by 1,000 times 100. And that will give you 2.3%, 2.39, but we're just going to round this up to 2.4. And that's the value of x. That's the percentage paid. Next question. So here we're working out, this is where this verbiage comes into play, the interest that she receives. So we're not working out the total amount that she has at the end, we're going to have to take it away at the end. So if we do 600 times 1.1 to the power of 2, that should give you 726, and that's not your answer. You're going to have to do 726 minus 600, and that will give you 126, and that's £126. That's the amount earned. That was quite a simple question, but that's all it requires. Next, this is a tad bit of problem solving here. So a fish tank has sprung a leak. At the base of the tank, 5% of the water is lost every minute. How much water is lost from the tank after 10 minutes? So 100% of the tank is there at first, and it's a percentage decrease question if you couldn't tell. So we're going to do 100 times 0.95, and after 10 minutes, instead of years this time we've got minutes. So 10 minutes here, because it loses 5%, so that's a 5% decrease multiplier every 10 minutes. And let me put that on my calculator. And I got 59.8737. I'm just going to round it off to there. And then what we're going to do with this, we're going to do 100 minus, we'll just call that x. And we're going to do 100 minus the x. So if you do 100 minus that on your calculator, you should get 40.1263. And that will be your answer there. well, it's a percentage, so don't forget to put your percentage sign there. The final question we're going to go over is one of the harder questions. So what we're doing here is we've got an interest rate, and this is how they trick you out. You've got the interest rate for your first year. So the mistake that some people make is they scan over that and think that you're calculating the value for all 3 years. So first we have to do 4,000 times 1.024, and that's for your first year. So we're just going to work that out now. 4,000 times 1.024, and that gave me 4,096. So that's your first year's earnings. So you've got 4,244.78, and we're going to divide that by 4,096, which should give you the interest rate for the 2 years, which should be x squared. So if I do that now, 4,244.78 over 4,096, you get 1.036323, etc. And you can just keep that value on your calculator, and we're going to square root that value there, and that gave me 1.017, and we're just going to times that by 100, and we'll get the value of 1.79, so we can do 1.8%. So x is equal to 1.8%. And that is practically all the types of questions you will encounter on this topic. I hope this video was useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.